when Adobe Photoshop came out, the headlines read that there will be no more art directors because Photoshop's going to replace them all. It's too easy now. You don't need an art director. Turns out art directors are now using Photoshop and it made them more effective. I think that's more the reality with AI. I don't think it's replacing creative teams. I think it's making creative teams much more effective.
Yeah.
There's 90,000 agencies in the US, and again, 99% of them are probably don't know what they're doing. I don't know a CEO that hasn't hired a agency. Just part of it.
Which platform are people sleeping on? There's so many of them. Is there one?
I think
that's
Reddit's
underrated?
still pretty underutilized, so that's a good one.
For what verticals?
I think that
Agentic commerce, you don't think AI agents will buy on behalf of you?
buy toilet paper, sure. But buy anything that's more emotionally driven, which is most of the consumers purchasing we're talking about, even food, I think it's going to be a while.
I used to work at Snapchat. The most interesting videos, no matter how many times we try to change that, is like these pimple popping videos.
God, I've seen those before. Yeah.
I mean, the truth is ugly or like cringy content does well.
You can go do pimple popping videos, but you're going to maybe get a ton of engagement. Those people aren't going to buy your product.
Yeah.
If your company was a person, who would they be? Like, start there. And then when you're looking at all these things, you go, would this person do this? Or talk about this? Or how would they say that?
Erik, it's wonderful to have you here. You've built a marketing powerhouse with Hawke Media, and you've been a successful founder building successful e-commerce brands. There's obviously a lot of questions I want to go over, but we're in an interesting time where there's a brand that gets created every day, and you also have AI that's made content creation really, really easy. And you who have been through many technical shifts, what do you make of this time?
Yeah, I think it's in its nascence. I think that it's going to be hard to predict where it goes, but I've been more bearish on the creative side being replaced by AI than most. I think that there's room for augmentation, but full replacement I think is not, it's far off. Because, we talk about sort of our marketing theory, which we have a book that's taught at a lot of universities called the Hawke Method. We talk about awareness, nurturing, and trust being the three pillars of a comprehensive marketing strategy. Let's dive into trust. People don't buy from companies they don't inherently trust, the majority of people. And so when you're going out, your creative is a lot of times your first touch point to a consumer or to a potential customer. And if that creative isn't felt as authentic, it can hurt the sort of emotional connection to your brand. And so people can tell AI is AI. And so if your brand, can you leverage AI in a way that still is authentic to the brand, which there are a lot of different ways to do that. If you're using it in humor, if you're using that in different ways, or if it doesn't matter that it's, again, authentically created, there can be use cases for that, but it also can do a lot of damage in the wrong situation. And I think we will see that. We've already seen it. I watched a post of someone using whose voice was it? Oh, Adam Sandler. They took an interview of him in a magazine and then used AI to create it as if it was a video of him talking. And the entire audience was just annoyed. Like, this is fake. This is bullshit. And the irony was, it was his words. It was just AI redoing those words. And I would say, again, in a vacuum, a novel idea, actually a really cool idea. Hey, this guy wrote this. Why not put it in his voice and put his face on it and say, here's him saying it. That's cool. That's a great use case. If you're sitting in a room full of AI engineers, that sounds brilliant. But people don't feel like it's honest. It feels dishonest. And so that human interaction is really hard to predict. And so the part that I believe is true creative is going to be really hard to replace. Because I do believe that it will. I think at some point, AI will be able to understand the nuance that is creative and create things. And we've seen it randomly with really funny songs and things like this. But I think that'll take a lot longer than the logic side of AI, whether it's data and analytics, legal, accounting, the things that are a lot more rational. That I think is very easy to teach AI. And I think it's actually kind of funny that the attention went to generative AI and creative before, or not even before, but it got more attention than those other channels, where I think that's actually where the real change is going to happen a lot faster.
Yeah. I guess, what is needed to talk to consumers, how to attract them, looks like it hasn't changed. From everything that you said, the frameworks remain the same.
Yep.
And you've been, scaling Hawke Media to where it is today. I think it's been over a decade. And there's been multiple shifts, starting from like when TV commercials were big to like Facebook growing big to now Meta to like now you have like so many other platforms where consumers are. What are some interesting things you've learned along the way, and why is it much more challenging, or is it more challenging to build a brand today and succeed through paid programs?
Yeah. Few different things there. You nailed it that things have shifted. But you also nailed it saying like, but a lot of it's the same. Like human behavior hasn't changed. And so the part that's really funny about when people say it's harder to do advertising these days than it was 5 years ago, there's a couple reasons for that. One is it got more competitive. More people went online when there was no demand for online, but there was tons of supply, meaning like there were tons of people online, but for some reason the bigger brands always take long to adapt. And so when you're in those early days of any type of marketing channel, you're dealing with a benefit and a problem. The problem is the channel probably hasn't been developed perfectly yet. The best practices, the way to leverage it, that you're going to have a hard time figuring out how to reach that audience. But if you do, it can be incredibly lucrative, which we saw with like sort of the heyday of e-commerce with all these brands that were able to like put $1 into Facebook and get 50 out. Like that existed. But that's not completely gone. So what shifted was when Apple changed iOS 14 and they cut off the ability for Facebook to track, which was this main channel that drove e-commerce. They didn't change user behavior. They changed tracking ability. And the main thing that changed was a very accurate 28-day tracking window turned into a very inaccurate 7-day tracking window. And the incredible thing to me is that happened in early or mid 2021. And still to this day, Facebook nor most marketers have acknowledged that this isn't a user behavior issue. This is just a tracking issue. And now there were some nuances that changed in terms of retargeting and the ability to go deeper funnel that affected the ROI a little bit. But it's actually more the problem is you were reading a 28-day ROI report and now it's a 7-day ROI report. Yeah. And it is that simple that all these people now believe that they're just not getting the same returns. And so a lot of people don't scale the same way. They don't reinvest the same way because they haven't built other capabilities to track that. And so those are the nuances of like when these platforms are shifting that are really important to have someone that really understands what's happening in marketing. But again, that's a shift where I think we're going to have the same thing with AI where it's like, you have to actually comprehend what's changing here. Because my favorite line about AI or one of my favorites is when Adobe Photoshop came out, the headlines read that there will be no more art directors because Photoshop's going to replace them all. It's too easy now. You don't need an art director. Turns out art directors are now using Photoshop and it made them more effective. I think that's more the reality with AI. I don't think it's replacing creative teams. I think it's making creative teams much more effective. And we're using it now. Like VO3 has been a great tool for us, but it works in specific cases. But back actually we were talking about before we started recording my singing ukulele on the beach. We're promoting this thing, Hawke Fest, as our upcoming event on September 25th. And our best performing ad for that is an AI ad. So if it can work because people already trust Hawke Media and it's more middle of the funnel and they're just like want to know what's going to be there. And we created this world that we're not trying to replace reality with AI, but we're actually just using AI to like envision what it could look like. Those are working well.
I completely agree with you, but a trend I've seen just as a consumer is that everybody in social media is trying to be authentic.
Yes.
At some point, they're trying to over-engineer authenticity that it comes across inauthentic.
Yep.
So what should they be doing? What are they doing wrong? How can they stop doing that?
I think that's the fun part about being authentic is just be authentic, like be yourself. Like you can't try to be authentic. You can't force authenticity. Like, just be yourself. Like, and that's where I actually would argue most influencers are absolutely not being themselves or being the character that they're trying to portray. And that's where it still works for some. It's bad, just like actors do very well. But I think, and that's, again, if your profession is going to be an influencer, you're probably trying to fit a role, and that works. We have one of the bigger, the tech bro guy filming at our office right now, which is pretty cool and fun to see, Austin Nasso. So that works for him. He's, authentic.
The tech roast guys?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I love their show. Yeah.
So yeah, they're literally they put out, we're looking for an office in LA if anyone has a fun tech office. And one of my former employees sent it to me. He was like, you should get them. I said, hey, if you want an office, here's ours, and sent a video, and there they are. So that's been fun. But that's a good example of like, he's not trying to be authentic.
Yeah.
And it's working. So depends where that is. But I think authenticity is definitely over talked about. It's a cliche, but I think in practice it's rare.
And I guess you worked with these larger brands like the Verizons of the world, but there's also these D2C brands up and coming. They're trying to make their space in the world.
Yep.
How should they think about paid advertising? What channels should they focus on?
Sure.
And how does their strategy differentiate from like some of those larger players?
Yeah. So again, this is kind of the funny thing about digital is like the two best performing channels still to this day are Meta and Google. Like they've been for 15 years, or 13 years. So that hasn't shifted. Now there's other opportunities like TikTok and TikTok Shop are really interesting. Pinterest for the right brand, Reddit for certain, very niche things. Like there's other channels, but Google and Meta still are the best places to start. Now I'd say it's more about like how to leverage those channels. And I think the fallacy in this business is, will it work or not for me versus it will work. You just have to make it work. And I think that's where it's like, if you're building a D2C brand, a consumer brand, and Meta's not going to work for you, well, your business is broken, not Meta. Like that's my view of it. And so figuring out how to make that a channel how you leverage it, the ways to make it work. And so to your point, like how do you pick a channel? You have to think about what is the context in which someone's receiving that reach, that advertisement, versus like this came up earlier today, like, oh, well, we're B2B, so we're going to be on LinkedIn. B2B is, again, and I'm speaking not on D2C, but B2B in general, people think of it as like B2C or B2B marketing. It's like you're targeting people always, not businesses. Businesses don't make a decision. People at that business make a decision. And so when you're thinking about where to market for it, it's like, where is that decision maker living? Well, they're still on Meta. They're still on Instagram and Facebook. They're still on TikTok. And so are you better off getting them on LinkedIn when they're maybe answering like a message or doing something proactive? Or are you better off getting them when they're scrolling late at night and see an ad for you and go, oh, actually, I need this at work. And now they're interested. So the way we think about now social channels like a TikTok or a Meta versus Google is one place you create new demand and one place you answer existing demand. On Google, people are searching for something and you're answering like, hey, we have that solution. So any type of problem solution focused company, Google is going to be really good. And then on Meta, it's really about creating new demand, things that you didn't even think you needed that are like, oh, wait, that actually is an interesting thing that can help me. The problem is on Meta, timing is impossible. Meaning like if it's a product that's like solving an existing problem right now, a medication, a type of law firm, et cetera, Meta is going to be really tough to create that because you're going to have to cast a very wide net that you may not be, finding the people that actually have your problem is really tough. So that's Google to Meta. Now Meta to TikTok. TikTok, I think, will end up, assuming all the geopolitical stuff gets figured out, will end up being a much more powerful advertising platform because they originated by creating what's called an interest graph versus a social graph. Meta is all based on who you like, who you follow, and who you engage with, whereas TikTok is only engagement and only like what's been engaging to you. So you're constantly used to seeing new content from people you didn't know existed, from sources you don't know existed. So when I serve you an advertisement, it falls right into line with everything else because you weren't expecting it to just be your friends, the people you follow. Whereas Meta has trained people to be like, this is your ecosystem that you live in. And they're now fighting against that and trying to, frankly, pivot closer to TikTok. Same thing with YouTube Shorts. But that's where TikTok has won some audience. The difference is Meta's had whatever it's been 15 years of building an ad platform where TikTok's way behind. And so it's going to take a while for them to build the same advertising algorithm that works so well on Meta. So
yeah, I guess one thing, because you brought up Meta and how good they have architected their system, Zuckerberg in the recent earnings call said, a good chunk of optimizations they've made on AI, a lot of the creatives that they're optimizing, they all come via their AI models. And he sees a future where everything will be automated. I think he said 2026. I don't know if I buy that number, but yeah. I'm sure in the near future, we might see that.
I think it's the second dumbest thing he said since he changed the name to a Meta. So that's my view of the Zuckerberg thing.
You're totally not a fan. Okay.
No, it's not a fan. I just think it goes back to what I was saying about AI taking over creative. I think that there's going to be a point where it's hyper complementary, but the idea
Yeah.
that AI is going to run creative for all brands, I think you're going to end up with a very homogenous, single form of, creative that's going to, and then the way you win right now is creating differentiated content, differentiated creative. If all of it is generated from the same place, then that no longer becomes a competitive advantage, and it kills the idea of creative. So,
Yeah.
and that doesn't mean creative dies in general. It just means that it's just not going to work very well. No one's going to buy that shit. So it's
Yeah.
like, I think it's a really, I'm shocked that a guy that's been in the advertising world for this long thinks that that's the next thing. But again, it goes back to even when he changed the name to Meta and the whole metaverse rush. It's like, I was watching the numbers because like I had an Oculus, one of the original Oculuses, and I've always tried to be like on top of these things. And I'm like, no one's buying these. So there's no actual users that care about the metaverse, but Mark Zuckerberg is going to own the metaverse and there's going to be no one in there with him, which is literally what happened. And so I think like the Meta glasses are really interesting in the ways they're looking at augmented reality now, but like changing their name to Meta was a really dumb thing. Now, with business is super successful, it didn't end up slowing them down at all. But that's how I look at this. Is like sometimes they make these grandiose decisions and think the vision's shifting, and it's like sometimes it's a dumb move, and that's okay.
Yeah, I guess it's important for AI to understand brand. Today, the way things are structured is they're not actually controllable, steerable. And I think we're at the stage where everything looks so shiny and cool. It's a toy.
Yep.
So we probably will hit reality pretty soon. Something that you brought up was, Google is still the best. Like brands should invest in it. There's definitely, at least personally, my search has completely shifted away from
Same.
Google
Yep.
to
Not
ChatGPT.
completely, but a good portion.
Yeah. Mostly I use Google for local listings, restaurants, but a broad set of my search really has gone to ChatGPT.
Yep.
And I'm curious, what do you make of the agentic commerce conversations?
Yeah.
Where do you put Google in that conversation? What should brands be worried about?
So great question. So I think there's a couple things there. Gemini should be catching up with that. And like I think that ChatGPT has a really interesting first mover advantage, but first mover advantage is kind of a fallacy too, that like pretty quickly if you disrupt it, doesn't end up being a strength. I have no skin in the game on any of this, but I actually think if Google doesn't screw it up, they have so much more infrastructure and so much more data and connections and connectivity that Gemini should have already ate ChatGPT's lunch, and I still think they have a lot of opportunity to do that because they're already, incorporating AI into their existing search. So you and I are in a technical field. We're, always looking at where advancement is. So the fact that we're using ChatGPT makes sense. We're early adopters. Most of the world is not. We're not seeing like when we look at our clients, and we digest about 6,000 companies' marketing, media, and revenue data. We're seeing subtle tones of like, oh, ChatGPT is actually a traffic source now. But it's not like, oh, wow, there goes Google. Like, it's not even close. We've actually still see, and that's why Google's stock is up and they're doing great, is like, and now they're incorporating AI search into paid. So they're finding ways to monetize AI before ChatGPT. So like the longevity, I don't know how long ChatGPT can burn billions of dollars a year before people are like, okay, is this actually a business? And so these are things that I think will be incorporated into this. And so yeah, I think you're right to sense that like there's a shift coming, but human adoption is really slow. So it'll take a long time before you really go look up and go, wow, remember when we used to search things on Google? Like we're all still using it. And if Google does a good job of incorporating Gemini into that, then you might go, I look for local stuff on Google. I don't need to use two different tools. I'm just going to go back to Gemini. That could be coming.
I guess shifting gears a little bit, there's at least I've heard from a bunch of companies, they always have a love-hate relationship with agencies, so they're in a dilemma. What do we take in-house versus what do we outsource?
Yep.
You're working with some of the biggest names, and I'm sure you're also working with like smaller up-and-coming companies. What should convince a founder to outsource creatives, which probably is a key part of their strategy to succeed?
If they're not good at it. Like, but to be blunt, like there's two pieces of that. Do you actually have enough need for someone full-time on creative? If it's a smaller brand, you probably don't. So that's why you should outsource it. It's like we always say, like, we're the best option when you need high-level expertise part-time. Like, they're not full-time for you. That's not how we work. We're fractional teams. So you don't get a full dedicated, generally. Once in a while, we'll work something unique with a specific brand, but that's a big part of our value proposition. And so, and then I would say, whether it's creative or anything, when you in-house is when it needs to be either low-level expertise full-time or you find a unicorn amazing individual that you want to bet on. So low level expertise, full time, like, more tedious work, more entry level work, you're paying a markup with an agency. They're making a margin on their people. Now there's efficiencies we find that allow us to not be like, you're actually getting a more efficient markup than you normally would, but still we're charging a margin. That's how we make money. So the idea is if you need someone that's not hyper skilled and you need them full time, fully dedicated to something, that's definitely something you should in-house. I also believe that overall marketing strategy pretty early should be in-house. We have outsourced CMOs, our tagline. We do a lot of fractional CMO work. I think we can help people get ramped up. We also can help a marketing director get some CMO perspective and outside perspective, and then be an advisor to that CMO. So that still works. But generally you want someone driving in-house that's like managing us and managing the team. And then from there, it's really nuanced. It depends on the brand, depends on what talent they have access to. That's where the back and forth is. I don't believe you should outsource to everything. I don't believe you should go in-house on everything. I think anyone that speaks in binaries is an idiot, frankly. I think it's about that balance and striking that balance that works for you.
And what qualifies as low-level work?
It's really all brand unique, but like you need to just post updates on your office every day, or you need to there's certain content creation that doesn't need to be high quality that you just need to check the box that you can do in-house. There's certain, again, it really depends on the business. So certain businesses that your social media content is not going to make or break you. Just get a junior person in-house that's going to film around the office and film behind the scenes and and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's those kind of things.
And I guess something that at least I've observed is there's this tension between these brand designers that are in-house and they work with an agency. There's a lot of back and forth. I'm sure the agency means well because a lot of content that's performing well is not really beautiful or highly editorial. But somehow the partnership is not super efficient, at least from a lot of folks I've spoken to. What's your take on how the creative team should be structured so you don't end up in a position where you're constantly fighting with each other and you start building really successful creative paid programs?
Yeah, I mean, I think, where do I put it? If both sides aren't treating this like you're on the same team, then you've already lost. That's the most important part in an agency relationship is we're on the same team trying to accomplish the same thing. Let's be clear on that and work together and figure out a process that works and be collaborative. And I think both sides do a bad job of that. I think agencies a lot of times are terrible at communication, terrible at accountability, and frankly, just terrible. There's 90,000 agencies in the US. And again, 99% of them are probably don't know what they're doing. And so you're likely going to end up hiring. I don't know a CEO that hasn't hired a shitty agency. Just part of it. So sometimes it's just you hired the wrong guys. So make sure you're hiring someone that's already accomplished what you're trying to accomplish and actually knows what they're doing, because that is one of the benefits. It's you've already done this, so show me what the benefits are. I'm big on outsourcing other parts of our business because I'm I don't know, we have an outsourced team and an in-house team balance on the finance side because I'm you guys are, and I just talked to the CEO Friday of the finance company we use, Propeller, and I was you guys are spending all your time on the R&D side figuring out what the newest innovations in finance are. I'm not at all. And so I look to you to innovate our finance department to make it work better and better. They're using a ton of AI on the finance side and building that out, things that my CFO and team would never take the time to do, not because they have enough on their plate. They don't have the bandwidth. And so you get that outside benefit. You want that, but you need to have that give and take of we're here to collaborate because there's also things that you're not going to do for me that I need someone in-house to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, one question that comes to my mind is you have scaled this agency. How you have operated this probably has changed over time. Mm-hmm. And one of the trends we saw was a lot of these design contractor jobs moved to places like Asia. And now people are saying, oh, with AI, I'm sure they're going to be automated away as well.
Yep.
How, where do you see the labor force moving forward given all these advancements with AI?
I think you're going to have a higher concentration of high skilled labor, and low skilled labor is going to have a really tough time. It's similar to when I heard let's say when ChatGPT came out in, late 22, it was by mid 23, I heard all these people saying, oh, I got rid of my content team. I'm just using ChatGPT. I'm you must have had a really shitty content team. It's getting better, but mid 23, ChatGPT 3, not in a place to replace a good content team at all. We're talking about written content. Now it's a little better. It's still not in that place. And so if you're depending on who you're outsourcing to, it's not to say that all overseas labor is not skilled labor. We have some great people overseas, but there was an aspect of low paid, low skilled labor to replace people here. I think that's going to have a tough time because that if I'm a business owner that's using, like call centers in the Philippines and like some of the more standard stuff we see with BPOs, I'm looking at, do I really need all those people, or can I have AI do most of that work and have a few skilled people to really handle the bigger stuff, which the whole thing will save me a ton of money and will deliver better.
Yeah, I guess we're seeing job losses already in that
Totally.
part of the world.
Exactly.
One of the trends we have seen is companies, both in SaaS and maybe some parts of D2C, they use paid as a way to, at least they are hoping they can engineer PMF. There's a lot of hype, at least on Twitter or sometimes LinkedIn or Instagram, where they say, oh, we just like eliminated this team. We did this so and so. And there's a lot of companies. I'm curious, is it ever possible, or has there ever been a scenario where you can engineer PMF through paid programs or buy more time to give you the right to build more?
So you're saying, and so show product market fit so that you can raise more money to keep going?
Fake product market fit, or engineer product market fit?
Yeah. So have a fake product, but get some people to show interest so that you can show, hey, there is something here now. Let's go spend time on it.
Yes. And do that through paid advertising, of course.
Love that question. This just came up. I think it was this morning. I was talking to someone that wanted to do this with us. Hey, we're just going to put up a fake web page, drive traffic to it, see what, if people, show interest, and then we can decide to do it. I think it comes from MVP and the idea of minimum viable product. And like, we're going to create an MVP to prove out that this thesis is going to work. And I think people look at minimal and don't use viable, and they don't think about it needs to be viable. And what I mean by that is like, I'm sure it's happened. There's exceptions to every rule. I think Tony Hsieh and Zappos might have done that, where they've put up a fake page and just started selling shoes when he had no shoes. I think that might have been part of the story. But I think 99 out of 100 times with successful businesses, you have to have so much conviction that you're not dipping your toe into starting your business. You know that it's going to work. The question is how, not if. And that's where I think a lot of founders get lazy, and like there's a little bit too much like echo chamber on the tech side, where it's like, well, we're going to go test 5 different companies, and whichever one starts getting traction, we're going to double down on that. And it's like, the problem is you don't actually give it a real shot to succeed. And so, and you get false positives and false negatives. You get, potentially you didn't do the right things to make it viable, and so nobody bought. Now you throw out the idea, even though it was probably a brilliant idea, but because you didn't really stick with it, you didn't get anywhere. Or you get a bunch of early interest, but it's not real customers because it's not a real product. And so you go spend a ton of time now because you're like, look, we have product market fit or fake product market fit. And you now go invest a ton of time because that becomes your North Star versus your actual own conviction and rationale and why it will work. And now you've run down the path for 2 years trying to rebuild that in a real way, and it never goes anywhere. So I'd rather just build the company I feel like I should build.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of examples I can think of in tech world, at least. What kind of creative engines should brands build today? Because there's like too many platforms. Everybody wants to be everywhere. They don't know where the consumer starts their consideration journey. What should a creative machine look like for a D2C team, let's say under 50 million in revenue?
Great question. I think it's a bit of a moving target, and I think you also have to figure out where you get traction. Like, the interesting thing is now, like, followers don't matter on these platforms because everything's about, it's gone full circle, and now we're back to trying to go viral all the time because, again, social graph doesn't matter. It's all interest graphs. So you got to find a way into your audience by creating content that reaches them from an interest standpoint. So depends which creative you're talking about. If you're talking about just creating creative for advertising in that side, you're going to need, you're probably going to want video creative now. It's very rare that you have a company succeed without some level of video. So you want, you also want photography, especially D2C. You're going to have great product photography, great imagery to work on Instagram and work on Facebook or work on some of these channels. And then I do believe in just consistent quality content that drives your value proposition that's above and beyond a purchase decision. So not just ads, also just ongoing content that reminds people why you exist and why they should engage with you, but also reinforces that value. So, for us, just Hawke Media, we're trying to, help people navigate marketing. We constantly put out content around how to run a business, how to do marketing, the things we're seeing in the market, because we know that we're happy to give away the secret sauce because we know that there's still work to do. And so we know we could be the ones to do the work. Whereas, and so, let's say you're an insole company for running, putting out content on the best trails to run on and the best running shoes to go with those insoles and the best shorts to wear and like all the other things that could complement it, so you become a destination for your potential customers. Like you can capture more of their attention. That's a really important part in building a brand now.
Yeah. I guess something that came to my mind when we were talking about video creatives is I used to work at Snapchat.
Uh-huh.
The most interesting videos, no matter how many times we try to change that, is like these pimple popping videos.
God, I've seen those before. Yeah.
I mean, the truth is ugly or like cringy content does well. So your brand's mission can be authentic, be cool and whatnot, but the opposite of it works on the paid side at least.
Right.
What do you make of that? Like, what should brands do to stay true to their roots while trying to chase performance goals?
Well, so what are those performance goals? They just nailed it. So that we talk about this a lot too, where like, not that there's a comparison, but take me or Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary has built a massive tens of millions of followers. I have not. I've got 1 million maybe. And so on that note, I don't see that as he's done better than me, because his audience are a lot of entrepreneurs, young people, just everyday people that are just looking to him for inspirational content. He's become, Tony Robbins, like a motivational speaker, which is great. Gary's awesome. That's not what I'm trying to do. I want to reach business owners and I want to help business owners. That's my focus. So the content I create does not speak to the general public. It's not that interesting to most people. It's interesting to people that want to build companies. It's interesting to people that want to grow their brands. That's a very narrow segment of society. So the chances are my performance metrics, when it comes to just social engagement, will never be anywhere close to Gary's, who goes and does his garage sale, hacking and all that stuff, which is really fun. I enjoy watching it too, but the audience that's really engaged by that are not the people I'm trying to reach. And so that comes into the strategy, even with my own content team, when we're talking about like, oh, we could do a video on, how to, it wouldn't be how to start a business, but like what to study in college, just trying to pull something out of the air. And it's like, sure, but who are we? You want me to reach high school kids? Like, who cares about what to study in college other than high school kids and their parents, I guess, neither of which, unless their parents are running a business and now like me for some reason, because somehow they realize what I do, that's a pretty far thing. But maybe it would be the most viral content I could do if I talked about like, what should people be studying right now? Because everyone's lost and trying to figure it out. So great piece of content, but not going to do anything for me in my business. So being very focused on who am I trying to attract. This goes even further with one of my least favorite types of influencers are the ones that post like their flashy car and their, like, here's my Ferrari and my money and how rich I am. Sign up for my course and you can be rich like me. To me, I see that, and there's a double-edged sword there in a bad way, which is thankfully good, because those guys will probably never be that successful. They're attracting the least common denominator of people that are actually turned on by the fact that they drive a Ferrari and go, well, maybe because this guy's posting about it, he can help me too. The person that's drawn into that generally isn't going to be that successful either, because they're going to probably just do what they do, which is replicate that guy and try to be the next guy that rents a Ferrari and pretends it's his and goes and sells. So all these guys turn into this perpetual cycle of all selling each other on this thing. Nobody actually makes any money. They all pretend to have money, and they all attract the worst type of customer. Versus like, I've always tried to be like really straight and like really speak to like what it is to run a business in a real way, and again, authentic way, because I know that the audience that's going to be attracted to that are the exact people I want to work with, or the savvy entrepreneur that knows their stuff. I used to say when we started, there is a guy named Chris Nella who ran marketing at Shoe Dazzle when I met him. Then he was at Soul Society, Gamefly. He's been in a bunch of great brands. And I met him when I was just trying to actually work in this exact office, my first time here since I sold that company, where we're sitting in this podcast studio. And I went to him and was like, how do I do digital marketing? And so when I started Hawke, I was like, I want Chris to hire us and like working with us. That means that we've succeeded. The guy that literally taught me to do marketing, seeing us as a value, that's the audience I want. And thankfully, we've been there many times. We've worked with them a bunch over the past 12 years. But that was a big litmus test for me, is how do I attract the best customer? And so back to the content question is, you can go do pimple popping videos, but you're going to maybe get a ton of engagement. Those people aren't going to buy your product unless your product is, acne medication or something.
Yeah. This reminds me, if you scroll through LinkedIn or Twitter or even Instagram these days, there's always a class of influencers who say, oh, I fired my content team and I made X MRR, ARR.
Yeah.
But every week the post changes. And if
Yeah.
you calculate the amount, they might be a billionaire today, but they're not. They're shit posting on all these platforms. I think that makes,
When that's what it is. They're full of shit. And,
Yeah.
And the irony is like, I don't know why they're so short-sighted, because the smart people see that and go, we know you're not telling the truth. Like, it's like when there was a day, like when performance marketing was in its heyday, so to speak, like 2018 to 21 or whatever, you'd see people post like, I got 100x ROAS for my client. You can be that too. And I'm like, you get 100x ROAS, like, and you do that consistently, you're a billionaire. Like, you're not doing that. What you did was you ran ads last month and then you turned them off this month, and now you're not spending anything, but you're still making money. Like, and any savvy person knows that. So the people that actually call that person because they saw that ad are the worst type of customers and aren't going to run a very good business.
Yeah. Something that really came to my mind when you were talking about a lot is like Hawke Media, I guess, like is shaped a lot by you as a person. It's very founder led, and there's a lot of D2C brands that are either celebrity led, influencer led, B2B business as well that are very founder led. At what point do you think you have to double down to continue doing that? At what point do you think that person being central to that company will hold them back?
Yeah. So the only reason it holds you back, in my opinion, is if you're trying to exit. So like investors, buyers, acquirers are going to look at that as a ding, because they're like, if you leave, this thing falls apart. We're about to make you rich. That's honestly the only drawback, in my opinion. In terms of I think of founders as a marketing channel, including myself. So a founder can write a book, a company can't, or no one's going to be interested. In fact, one of those like, I'm trying to think of the word, but those no duh moments is I've built a decent following. I have never run ads from my account until I think 2 months ago. And immediately we just took the ads we were running on Hawke Media's accounts on social and search. We do all the things we tell clients to do too. And we moved half the budget to my personal accounts and just tried it on my Instagram and my TikTok. Our cost per order dropped in half just from my account versus Hawke Media's account. It was like, and it was one of those things, we've been doing this for 11 years and we just thought about doing this. And it was me. Like, I just had never, and I've told 100 other people to whitelist and work with influencers and run ads from other accounts, and we just hadn't thought about it. We did it and it's worked incredibly well. So I think the founder, and it's once you look at it, you're like, well, this makes complete sense. Like, they're going to trust me more than some nameless brand or faceless brand, excuse me. And same thing goes for just about any company. If I know who's behind it and they fit authentically the company, then yeah, it's like, I was a co-founder with a man on a women's activewear brand after this. Probably shouldn't have been the face for the company. We weren't. So, and it went really well. It's still around, called Ellie, ELLIE.com. But that we weren't authentically a part of the brand. We had other faces and frankly, a lot of great women on the team that were great faces of the company, but him and I should not have been in any ads, and we weren't. But if you actually do fit your business authentically and can be a face for it and fit that's why celebrity brands, when done right, work really well. Is a brand identity should be what are people aspiring to be when they buy from your company, and aspiration doesn't have to be grandiose. It could be as simple as, I buy new socks because my socks aren't comfortable and have holes in them. Like, that's an aspiration, is to be out of socks that have holes in them and are uncomfortable. So when you're thinking about what you're building, is there a celebrity or yourself that fits that aspiration? Thankfully, like for Hawke Media, we've been successful and we work with a lot of SMBs. So like, I can be the face because I've been through it. I have accomplished what a lot of our clients want to accomplish, or I'm a peer, or I'm on the level, et cetera. So I make a good face for that. Where, you get a celebrity that already is known and that people know who that person is, and you match them with the right authentic brand. For example, Jessica Alba and Honest Company, sweet girl, known well, known as a good mom, and now she's launching a brand because she was frustrated about what was happening with baby products. Fits really well. And now you have way less of a job of telling that story and getting that out there, and you can get more to the point. That's where a celebrity can work really well. Where it doesn't is when that doesn't fit. You can get, what's a one that flopped? There's so many, but
J-Lo, I think, has one which didn't take off.
And what was she selling? I'm curious.
Cosmetics.
Yeah, so is J-Lo's obviously a good-looking woman, but is she known to be the beauty influencer that everyone was looking for her for cosmetics?
Probably not, yeah.
Yeah, apparently not. So it's that kind of thing. It's like, if you're not that go to and it doesn't fit. And then I'd say the other way of looking at that is if they bring an incredible strategic advantage to it. So Casamigos, who's one of our clients, George Clooney would host dinners for the buyers that would buy Casamigos. No buyer from like Ralph's and Albertsons is going like, no, I'm not going to go to George Clooney's for dinner. And then once you're there, nope, I'm not going to carry your tequila. So like, it wasn't just about George Clooney's tequila. It's about because he opened doors. Ryan Reynolds is an incredible marketer. So sitting on Aviation Gin and Mint Boble, he lived it. He moved it everywhere. His ability to comment on, culture, what he just did, his agency just did the, what was that, Astronomer, the whole scandal with Coldplay. They're the ones that went and grabbed Gwyneth Paltrow, called Astronomer, got that deal done. Like, they're incredible at that. So, and that's, Ryan Reynolds is behind that. So the celebrity thing, again, can bring that authenticity back to that really quickly and make people understand what the value of the product is.
Yeah. And I guess, how do you, at least today, calculate lifetime value? Because especially some of these organic content channels that you're using to convert customers can be hit or miss or slow. So I mean, even for me as a tech founder, I'm always thinking about this. So what's your formula for calculating ROI?
Calculating, ROI and lifetime value are different. So calculating ROI, I look at it more, this is where it's a belief of make it work, not does it work. It's a very different way of looking at marketing, where it's like, I'm not going to decide whether or not I should be making content on YouTube. I'm going to assume I should be making content on YouTube because I have a good product, and if I can get it in front of the right people, they're going to buy it and it's going to be successful. That's going to be my assumption. Like, I built a good business model. I have good margins. Where do I need to get out? I'm going to try to leverage every channel out there in the right way so that they all work in different ways. And to me, once you get to an 8-figure scale of revenue, you should be looking at it like a stock portfolio and diversification. You'd be trying a bunch of different things and watching where you can. Nothing's going to track perfectly. You might see that you're getting a ton of traffic from YouTube that's driving a ton of business, but it's really because you ran Facebook ads for 3 years and now those people are seeing your YouTube video and then clicking through. All that's really hard. So you need, frankly, really smart people on the marketing side that understand the nuance so they can go, like, there's a little bit of gut and art still in it. Like, it is an art and a science. You need to watch the data. Again, I'm very numbers driven, but there's still art to, we know we have a good value proposition. And if we reach our audience and they don't buy, we don't have a good business anyways. So we might as well try to reach our audience in a bunch of different ways. And then it's about maximizing the leading indicators. So like with YouTube, like, are we getting engagement? Is it the right engagement? Are they clicking through? Are they spending time on the site? Like, how do we then increase all those metrics and then improve over and over and over again to make that another great channel so that it becomes lucrative? And then in terms of ROI, look at the big bucket first. How much am I spending overall on sales, marketing, growth, and how much are we making, so I can get a CAC to LTV kind of side of things, and then, or metric, and then double down on, again, knowing the nuance. Because if you look at the exact numbers, you're going to stop doing things that probably drove a lot.
Yeah. I guess something that is quite interesting is, you've worked with some of the largest brands, and all of these brands at some point have been very cringy because they've tried to expand their target audience to bring on Gen Z, and all of them have miserably failed, and they come across as like super cringe, disgusting, or people don't want to be associated with them. And the other trend is, whatever is the cultural moment of the time, they're trying to associate themselves with it. And then the trend shifts. And then obviously they come across as like people not super authentic, or they just look really silly. So you're working with so many of these brands. What is the framework that you provide for them so that they can stay on top of consumer trends, but not also continue to miss them because they're so slow?
I think it depends on the brand. There are brands that should stand for what they stand for and stick to their own lane and just be in their lane. And then there are brands that actually benefit from commenting on the, cultural situation. And then how they do it, whether it's taking a stand in sort of a social impact stance, or it's humor, or whatever it is. It just depends on the company. And again, the easiest way to look at this, and this is where celebrity is a shortcut, but like, if your company was a person, who would they be? Like, start there. If your brand was a person, who would they be? It could be as simple as it's this celebrity, which is where celebrity brands work well, or it can be a whole biography you build on someone, which I think is a really good brand exercise. And then when you're looking at all these things, you go, would this person do this, or talk about this, or how would they say that? And that's a great lens to look at this, because if your brand is a social justice warrior that's out talking about every cause, then your brand should be talking about every cause. If you're, someone you're a deep tech company with a deep science background, and it's that person is, your persona is more of like a scientist, you're probably not going to care about geopolitics. You're looking at science unless it affects science. And then that's a great example of like, if the government's cutting scientific research and you're a science-backed company, you might comment on that, even though you don't normally comment on politics, because that fits your persona.
Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Maybe shifting gears a little bit, creative fatigue is top of mind for every team. There's so many platforms today. Everybody wants to be everywhere. I guess some people work with agencies, some don't. What should they target when it comes to creative? Because it looks like everybody's throwing everything on the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yep.
Is that the best strategy?
Well, no. I shouldn't say that. In some ways, yes. Back to Chris Neva, the guy that taught me digital marketing. The first thing he said to me was throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And it was like, oh, it's that simple. So that is a valid part of marketing, is trying a bunch of things and then watching the metrics and seeing what sticks. But I also think there's a part of that where it's like understanding why it stuck and understanding that, and then iterating off of that to do better. Again, this is all about, if you're just throwing stuff out all the time, you're never going to improve. You're never going to optimize. And so it's trying a bunch of stuff in the beginning, understanding why certain things work, and really being curious and like why did that work? Why did that work? Why do people act that way? Why are they responding to this? Why on Snapchat do pimple videos work so well? I actually don't know. When they pop up for me, no pun intended, I literally scroll fast as I can. Like, I do not want to see that. And I don't have a weak stomach, but that's one thing I really don't like watching. But for some reason, people stare at them. And so understanding the why there and really diving into it and doing your research and like asking questions so that you understand it, so you can iterate off that. So the fatigue, this is where every brand is different. And what I would say is the counterpoint to that is you have to say it enough and have the creative hit someone enough that it actually settles in. So like just showing someone a video once, they might actually get the gist of it. So like sometimes you do want to hit a few impressions or a few more than you've even been comfortable with, because even though they've seen it and they still haven't made the decision, and you need that reminder, because maybe it did capture their attention. Maybe they actually get the value proposition, but they're in the middle of something, or they hadn't built enough trust yet, or that pain that you're trying to distill hasn't really hit them yet. And when you send it again, they're like, oh, this thing, oh yeah, I need to go buy that. So there's a level of frequency that you still want to have, but there comes a point where people, again, this is where people are a little too into the spreadsheets of it all. They'll look at it and go, well, we've served this to someone 12 times. Let's serve them a different ad because that will work that time. It's like, or maybe they just don't like your product. Like they're just not interested, and that's okay. Not everyone is. And so I think that drives some of the like creative refresh that happens. And you've tried the same value proposition 5 times, 10 times, 15, 30 times, whatever the frequency cap you want to put on is. Let's try a different value proposition. Let's try a different way of reaching this person. And now they've already got a little bit of an angle, but we've seen this with email marketing campaigns. We've seen this with sales. One person might be sold, let's just using Hawke Media as the example. One person might be sold on the credentials and like, hey, we've worked with all these great brands. We've had all this success. That's one person. One person might be sold on the flexibility. We're happy to do month to month. We're happy to be flexible. Everything's a la carte, because one person might have been burned because someone ended up not knowing what they're doing. Another person might be burned because they got locked into a 1-year contract with an agency and they could never get out of it. Different people are motivated by different things. And so presenting different value propositions is super important. And that goes for like the practical side, like contracts or skill sets, but also goes for just the, more emotional appeal of like, you like this shirt because it was worn by celebrities, but this person likes it because it was manufactured in a way that's sustainable. And this person likes it because it has a funny slogan on it. Like different people are drawn to different things. So trying different creatives. Yeah.
I guess, which platform are people sleeping on? There's so many of them. Is there one?
I think
that's
Reddit's
underrated?
still pretty underutilized, so that's a good one.
For what verticals?
Just about anything. I mean, if you think about it, like Reddit's almost it's like number 3 on Google every time you search. So like from an SEO perspective, it's like a powerhouse. But how many brands actually still leverage Reddit, because it's not that scalable? It's hard to manage. So I don't know if they're sleeping on it, but it's a good one. I think YouTube Shorts has been underutilized. It's gotten really prominent recently and underutilized. And then, I mean, I live in an echo chamber where LinkedIn is not underutilized, but I think back to the founder-led brand where you can really become a funnel for your company, LinkedIn's really interesting. to show who you are as a founder or a CEO.
And with D2C brands, which platform should they double down on? Because it looks like because of drop shipping, there were a ton of brands that kind of offer the same thing, but the differentiating component was like the creative and the storytelling.
Yep.
So curious, which platform should they double down on?
I think every brand should be thinking about being their own media business. I think they all need to be thinking about, like, if I am also a publisher, what does my magazine or my media channel look like? And like that, like what is the perfect place that I'd want to advertise, and how do I become that? Because we live in a world where advertising's still gotten a lot more expensive. It's gotten a lot more competitive in general in these D2C brands. And you really need to hold your customers longer and get that higher lifetime value and really learn to build a moat. And then also great content is like exponentially better than to drive word of mouth than your product. Like people will share content because that's what people do now, is they all sending messages on, like, sharing reels, etc. all the time. So if you create great content, you will get a lot more virality with your customer base than you will just because you have a great product. And so the combination of user acquisition and a cheaper rate, because if you can increase the K factor, that viral coefficient, then every customer you have to buy by doing advertising, they'll bring some with them because you give them the tools to do that. So the more you can enable word of mouth with content, the better. And then again, you create content to keep them coming back. Your conversion rates will increase because people engage with you above and beyond that purchase decision. And your repeat purchasing will increase because they'll keep coming back. The last piece of that, though, is you have to have great merchandising, which a lot of companies miss, so that people have other things to buy. You see, Casper struggled after that sale heavily. They never really were able to get that profitability side because you sell a mattress. And then their second product was a dog bed, which, cool, I love dogs, have a dog. That's your business model? Like, that's tough.
Yeah, they were really big on radio advertising. They were every ad that I heard on radio was theirs.
And they're great they were great at marketing. The problem is if you're going to sell one product every decade, you're going to have a really tough business to build.
Yeah. Have you changed your creative guarantees or contractual obligations to clients, especially now with AI? The cost of content creation seems to, at least a good content creation, no matter what they say, the expectations have changed. Everything seems to be faster and cheaper. Mm-hmm. So have you changed how you structure the guarantees that you give towards your clients? No,
we scope it out. Like, so if it's cheaper to do because they're okay with us using AI for certain things, then it's cheaper to do and it's going to be cheaper. Like it's really straightforward with that. Like, especially because creative, thankfully, from a business model perspective, it's a tiny piece of our business. It's a very important part because it drives everything else we do. But the actual creative production is a small piece of our revenue. And so we're fine with, if you want to go cheaper, like we're actually trying to get that creative done so we can go run ads behind it. So we can go do the email marketing. So we can go build your website. So we're more interested in like getting it done. And if you want to do it the cheap, efficient way with AI, fine. It depends on if we'd advise that, which we will push back if it's the wrong move, again, from an authentic standpoint. But if we can do it cheaper, they'll get a savings. And we're really disciplined about our markups there. So that's actually it's made us more accessible, which is great.
And as an investor, what are some trends you're interested in and excited to invest in?
I mean, GEO, like AI optimization, we invest in a company called Gumshoe, and that's going really well because we frankly, like the way we're looking at it and it's very intertwined. We invest in marketing technology and e-commerce tech that we use on the agency side. And we're looking at where can we if we're going to create efficiency, then we can create over delivery. So let's say you're paying us, I don't know, $5,000 a month to do your SEO. It's just a hypothetical. Well, if we go to you and say, hey, thanks for this. By the way, now we do your AI SEO too. No extra charge, because that created efficiency that we could do that at the same cost. But similar to what we said about creative, if it doesn't cost us more, it's not going to cost you more. So if we can do it efficiently and just over deliver for you now because of the things this is creating, we just become a better agency for you. And that's generally how it's manifesting right now, is it's not like added services and added technology that's, creating new lines of revenue. It's actually just making us better at everything, more efficient at everything. But instead of dropping all our prices and just becoming, chasing the bottom, we're just over delivering. And so the clients working with us are now having just much more horsepower.
Mm-hmm. And are you ever worried that those technology companies will ever end up replacing you completely?
I think some will. And that was actually our original thesis behind investing, was some technologies will replace some of what we do. And why wouldn't we want to be a partner in that? It came from, there was a book, one of the first books I read out of college was a book called Appetite for Self-Destruction by Steve Knopper, a Rolling Stone author that wrote about the music industry's inability to adapt to change. And so when it went from tapes to records to tapes to 8-track, 8-track to CD, CD to digital, the incumbents never pivoted and they just got disrupted. And so then you see like Uber and taxi companies, et cetera. And so I was always like very adamant about like, how do we continue to invest in or be a part of being the Uber to our own taxi company? So we built our own AI systems that, we have Hawke AI that we built. That tool took a decade building that tool and it's been great. But we also have funded some companies that have displaced some of what we do, but then have just turned into other opportunities to do other things too. So similar to how AI is working right now, where it's just opening up more horsepower. Most of the companies we invested in have done that. But even like we invested in a company called Play.io, Plai, that helps us spin up and automate a lot of the ad creation and like ad units and ad sets and all that. And we invested in that knowing that it would displace some of what we do, which either means we can now over deliver on the ad creation or we can charge less to spin up at a campaign. Either way, great. Makes us more accessible or it makes us more robust.
Yeah. I guess I could keep asking you questions, but to wrap it up, what kind of future do you see for consumer advertising? What does 2030 look like?
2030, honestly, no idea. And I'd say for the first time, I think we're in a world that anybody trying to make a claim 5 years from now is just full of shit. Like the AI is changing things so much faster than we can comprehend that I don't think it's fair to try to make a 5-year prediction. But I would say in the next year, I think AI really comes after commerce. And I think like you mentioned looking at ChatGPT for the deeper stuff, like when you're shopping, I do it. Like when I'm like looking for a specific type of product, I don't know what a good example is. I need a case for my watch. I'll go look at like, what are the best cases for nice watch, Like I might do that on ChatGPT now instead of Google because I don't want to just click through a bunch of links that do good SEO. I want to like get down to, but I'm looking for one that's flat, but I'm looking for one that can fit here. Like you can give it those metrics and it will just start searching for you. It's not great yet though. Like the response isn't perfect, but I think it will continue to make progress. And I think they're going to, whether it's Firmly, which is another one of our investments that powers sort of commerce through Perplexity and some of these platforms, I think they're going to get to the point where it's going to be interesting to see how like Shopify adapts to that and how Google Shopping adapts to that. Because I think there's going to be a point pretty soon where you're going to start being able to just buy right through these. But I don't believe that there's a future where we're all just sitting in prompt interfaces and just typing all day, and that's going to be how we experience it. Like I still want to, like I saw someone post today, it's the death of the product detail page. Like that is the last thing I think that's going to die, because I'm still going to want to look at the product that I'm buying online, scroll through the images of it, understand like if it's a shirt, how does it fit the model? How's it going to fit me? Does it, anything I don't know, I want to see all angles of it before I buy it. I don't think that's going anywhere. And I'm curious how over time the interface changes on these AI tools.
The PDP actually gets linked in these results. So if you don't have a PDP for that query, it hallucinates.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what's wrong with like the sort of charlatans of the space is they're going to go make these grandiose statements because it gets attention and they're rewarded for attention and they never get held accountable if they're wrong. And so people love, I remember seeing headlines 15 years ago that email marketing was dead. Still one of the most lucrative parts of e-commerce. Klaviyo is what, a $10 billion company? Yeah. Like I think email marketing is doing okay. So
yeah. What about agentic commerce? You don't think AI agents will buy on behalf of you? So a lot of the ads you create are going to be seen by AIs?
That's fair. Eventually, I think it's going to take a very long time for that to do a good job. And this is also where it depends. Buy toilet paper? Sure. But buy anything that's more emotionally driven, which is most of the consumers purchasing we're talking about, even food. Like, I think it's going to be a while before AI, because I think, again, AI is based in logic, which is a great thing in a lot of ways. But when it comes to people who are emotional and replacing those emotional decisions, I don't think it's going to go there. And honestly, I think the US, but in general, consumerism and retail therapy is a real thing. I don't think people want to not shop. I think people like going and finding the thing and buying the thing that makes them feel good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Same.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.